So guys, as you can see, we are doing a video about laminated steel. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to think when I'm talking about laminated steel in blades. You're going to think this, which you can see has a laminated blade, which you have a harder surface covered with a softer surface. But not to give up the secret, here comes the music. So, I know that a lot of you guys know what a laminated steel blade is. I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence here by doing a video about things that people know. But what the thing is that you have to remember, and I don't technically have a Damascus pattern welded blade here. I don't own any anymore. This is technically a type of Damascus, or Damascus could actually be considered a type of laminated steel. So to kind of demonstrate, and as an analog stand-in, I have my daughter's Hummingbird, which is in Damascus steel, which is not technically a pattern welded steel. It's more a powdered metallurgy that's been done so that you get two different very similar types of steel that are done, and it's homogeneous, and it is not actually pattern welded. But we're just going to say that this is Damascus. We're in play. So when you're looking at a laminated steel blade, what you have is there's several different kinds. Now, laminated simply means multiple layers attached to each other. And so that's why I'm including Alabama Damascus in this, because technically you're starting with several different dissimilar types of metal, and through a process of forge welding, you are adhering those together, and then in the folding process you get a pattern. But it is a laminated steel. It's multiple steels that are adhered to each other through the forge welding process, as opposed to this. Well, I mean, it's similar to this, which is multiple layers that are forge welded together. And so what you have is the leading edge piece on this is a little bit harder than the spine. What it is the Cold Steel has trademarked this as their Sanmai 3 steel. And so here's another version of it, and you can see the laminate very, very clearly on this beautiful Cold Steel Pendleton Custom Classic. And I'm bringing this one out because you can clearly see how they do theirs. The darker piece down the center. Can you see that line? Hang on a second. So you can clearly see that line down the center of this knife. Well, you can clearly see it if you're looking directly at it. There you go. You can kind of see the difference. There it is. So what they've done in these is there is a steel on the outside that's jacketed. There's a piece down the middle, and they grind it and they expose the more desirable steel to the front, and then your lesser steel is back here, and what you get is hard leading edge with some flexibility. Now, this isn't done the same way that the Japanese would do in, say, a Japanese sword, even though technically, a Japanese sword is considered Sanmai steel. I don't care what Cold Steel says, they cannot say it's not. It's a Japanese term for the way they did it. So what they would do is they would take two very different carbon content steels. They would make a U-shaped piece out of the softer steel, put their harder edge piece in after they've worked this steel to a point, and then they would only fold it this direction to make sure that the harder edge steel stayed at the very front. So what you had was a harder steel encapsulated in like this canoe that they closed up, a little taco shaped piece, and then you maintained your harder steel at the outside. Alabama Damascus is not like that. Alabama Damascus is folded all the way through. There's lines and things like that. But the fact is, all Damascus steel is technically not Damascus steel. This is closer. This is way closer to true Damascus than the stuff you're going to see like Chad Nichols Damascus, Vegas Forge Damascus. Because technically what Damascus steel was it was a type of crucible or root steel that was made in the Damascus area, and then that technology has been lost. And so what they've done is they've went back and people have tried to duplicate the way it looks through a different process, which is forged welding. So if you were to, or pattern welding Damascus, what it's called is Damascus pattern welded steel. Pattern welded steel with Damascus. So all of these are technically, including this old little guy here, where this whole lower piece is the harder steel, and you can see there, and then this entire upper jacket sits on top, and so you get some flexibility to support that, and then you have that really, really fine cutting edge there. So technically, everything we have, none of what we actually look at these days and look at as Damascus is truly Damascus steel. Now, I do know that there are some people out there that are trying to reverse engineer some of the old school crucible woot steel that was basically, you got that pattern because they were metals that were all molten together and they kind of separated into different groupings of carbides and things like that, and you got a pattern. But the fact is that when you buy a knife that is a forge welded steel, it's not the same. They have not dissolved together, and so herein lies the problem. While these are relatively easy to deal with this, because your whole edge is the same material, pattern welded Damascus that is not a Sanmai style, where it does not have that hard edge left on one side and it's been folded unidirectionally to make sure that that edge piece stays at the front, well, now you've run into some problems, because there are several things that can happen in pattern welded Damascus pattern welded steel, like Alabama Damascus, which, don't get me wrong, it can be gorgeous, but I've sharpened enough of them that you see some problems. One is you have multiple types of steel, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes only 2, that are being folded together and welded together at temperature. So you can have one distinct problem, which is you can have Damascus come unlaminated, where the forge weld just didn't take, and it's going to be really hard for you to tell that that forge weld is not taking. And what will happen is sometimes you'll be doing something, you'll be grinding, and then just pieces of it just start to flake off. One of the other things that happens is, as a sharpener, I see it all the time. You don't see very many videos of me doing sharpening on a Vegas Forge steel, Alabama Damascus, any of those actual pattern welded steels. You will see me doing videos where I do laminated steel. The reason being is I'm never satisfied with the edge, because what you have is 3, sometimes 4 different dissimilar pieces of steel that are forced together, and then they're heat treated at one temperature. Now, the reason I bring this up is this is S30V. This is S35VN. And in my pocket, I have LMAX, and here is M390. And none of these have the same heat treat. And so what you get is, when you start to sharpen a pattern welded Damascus blade, from a sharpening standpoint, you can feel it when it interfaces with the stone. Some parts of it are harder, some parts of it are softer, and you never get a consistent edge, because some parts are going to wear faster than the other parts, and so you get dips, and you can feel them in a pattern welded Damascus. The finer the pattern, the better you actually are getting, but you still run into issues where it doesn't feel right on the stone, it looks wavy, you're not getting a good edge. I wish I had a piece of it here to show you. And then the other side of that is, as you're cutting, parts of it are going to be duller than others. That's why I do not like the idea of pattern welded Damascus or Damascus pattern welded steel in straight razors. You want that edge as consistent and as fine as possible. So I just wanted to touch on this because I had somebody tell me, I said, well, Damascus type of laminated steel. Like, no, it's not. It really is. It really is. When you look at it, the process is the same when you make this as it is when you make Damascus. You're just doing it with folding and multiple welds. You could do the same thing with this. You would just have to fold it a bunch of times and reforge weld it, and then you get layers, and then the layers can be exposed with an etch. There is no real good reason to do it the way that we do it anymore to make pattern welded Damascus. There are so many better steels out there that are congruous the entire way through. That's the nice thing about Damas steel. Damas steel is basically one piece of steel. Regardless that it's two types, one has a little bit more carbon in it than the other, you don't run into that issue with delamination because it is a powdered metallurgy. It's hot rolled. It's all one piece. You don't run into that when you're sharpening. It all feels the same. It all feels like RWL 34. So the reason is just because of the aesthetic of it. But that's not, like, everybody's like, oh, well, it's because of the Japanese and they did this. Well, to the true reason why the Japanese folded their blades was they were dealing with a very impure source of iron. The black sand that they use, there's nothing magical about it. As a matter of fact, if you really want to get down to it, as much as I love samurai sword and Japanese culture and all that, the steel they used is a very inferior steel. Most of the steels today are way better than the tamahagani steel that they used that came from the black sand ore. And that is because it was so poor. The only reason they wound up with a very good blade was just being able to think around the fact that I need something hard, but I also want some flex. I need something to support the edge, but not crack at the spine. And then they came up with their differential heating. And to get rid of the impurities in the steel, they realized that every fold, it more evenly distributed the carbon in the steel. And it brought impurities to the surface that then were removed in the forging process as the scale. And that's why they would start with a large piece and then wind up with a very small amount left to make a sword, because a lot of it was impure. So guys, I just want to touch base on that. There is no reason why we do it the way we do. For some steels, yes, mainly as a cost-saving thing. If I was to get a very expensive piece of steel, I could get a piece that was a lot thinner and use two cheaper, softer, less desirable pieces of steel on the outside, and I didn't have to have as thick of a piece of my premium steel as I previously needed. And I'm not gonna lie, that is an attractive feature. That laminated line is an attractive feature. So that's my take. I was arguing with the guy about it earlier today, and I'm like, you know what, I'll just do a video about it. And you don't have to agree with it. We're both friends. So me and Will, we will agree to disagree on this subject, but I think upon seeing this and like laying it out for him, all Damascus pattern welded steel is laminated. Not all laminated steel is Damascus patterned steel, but they are very, very much the same animal. One is done for a functional, financial, and practical way to maximize the use of a specific steel. And the other is a way to kind of bring back a piece of the past when we technically don't know exactly what the process was for making the actual Damascus steel. And so it gets you an attractive feature. But at this point, like I said, there are so many steels that outperform any Damascus that's out there. It really does. You cannot tell me that as good as Chad Nichols' pattern, Damascus, canister Damascus is, that it is as good as a premium steel that's all heat treated the same, that's all done, it's only one type of steel, and it's done properly, either crucible style, or if it's been done, the hot roller style, or any of the other fashions, that powdered metallurgy, they are so much better. And I just think it's kind of the elephant in the room. Like, everybody knows that actual pattern welded Damascus is not as good as consistent steels like M390, S35VN, Damas steel, RWL 34, any of those steels that are so much more consistent. You're just never going to be, they will never compare. Is it attractive? Yes. But does it fit an actual purpose these days? No. So that's it, guys. If you like the videos, give them a thumbs up. If you don't like them, give them the thumbs down, but please try to tell me what about the video you didn't like. I am going to push this right now. I do know that I say it at every video. My daughter's GoFundMe for her ice skating is down below. We've been looking at what the next few competitions are going to cost, and it's a lot. We have a few competitions that are going to be overnight stays, maybe a couple day stays. We have to. It's just the way it works. So if you choose to support my daughter's ice skating, the GoFundMe will be in a link down here. Over here will be a video that YouTube thinks you like. Down here is going to be a video that I think you like, and I have an idea what video it's going to be. It's not going to be one of mine if I can figure out how the link works. Over here is going to be a subscription link, and down here is a GoFundMe link if that's something you would choose to do. Guys, I love you all. I appreciate all the support. I've got another video I want to try and shoot today, but I still have work to do. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm still just getting partway through my day. So please bear with me. I will try to get more content up. I love you guys. Take it easy. Take care of yourselves. Be safe, and I'll see you next time.